Thank you! Thank you all for coming out here today! My name is Olivia. I'm with the Democratic Socialists of America. We are out here today because last week Israel launched yet another bombing campaign on Gaza, killing 34 people and injuring over 100, including children. They killed an entire family of 8 in one house. The corporate media will tell you that this is a both sides conflict, or even worse, that Israel has the right to defend itself against terrorists. But it is not self-defense when it is your army that occupied a land that wasn't yours and expelled and ethnically cleansed 1 million people. And it is not terrorism to fight back over half a century of occupation and brutalization. That is resistance. If you pay taxes in America, you are complicit in this. We give over nearly $4 billion a year in funding to the Israeli military. Not aid. They'll call it aid. It's not aid. It is direct funding. Here in Portland, our city has a contract with G4S, which profits from Israeli prisons. Our police chief, Danielle Outlaw, participated in the ADL police training so she can learn the tactics of brutalization from Israeli military to bring back to use right here in Portland. It is our duty to stand up against this. But a lot of you who are here today probably already know this. We don't want to just preach to the choir. We want to talk to people who are out here today and let them know what their tax dollars are supporting. So Ron is coming with flyers. We're going to have flyers for people to pass out. We have a petition to sign that we'll also be able to pass out. We need to move beyond our silos because the most important thing that we can do is to change public consensus around this, to make it so that not only is it no longer acceptable for elected officials to support funding of apartheid and occupation, but we make it so that they must support a liberated Palestine. So today we're going to be hearing from Palestinian voices, from Jewish voices, and from voices of 2 people who are running for public office. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. He is from Gaza. Let's hear it from Mohammed.
Do you hear me? Hi everybody, I'm Mohammed. I'm a resident of Portland for a long time, and I'm here to, lay some thoughts. But before doing that, I want to acknowledge that we're standing here on a stolen land. It's the land of the Chinook, the Multnomah, the Clackamas, and many indigenous people tribes that have been on this land since its beginning, and now they are being stripped from their right to their land. So we need to acknowledge that before we're talking about any other issue on this land, because this is very crucial to all the other oppressions that we are facing, whether here in the US or overseas. Directly linked to this issue is the actual right of return for the Palestinian people. Because we cannot talk about Gaza, we cannot talk about Jerusalem, we cannot talk about Hebron, we cannot talk about Jaffa and Haifa without talking about the right of return. It's the most crucial piece of the Palestinian issue. And if it was not acknowledged, there is no peace, there is no equality, there is no any other thing that can stand without the right of return. It's the most crucial and the most elemental issue for the situation in Palestine. The other thing is Gaza is being sieged for more than 15 years right now. But before the siege, there was occupation on the land. There was settlements. There were basically impacting our lives day to day by having checkpoints, by having settlements, by having side highways for settlers only. And then after 2005, when they say oh, we freed Gaza, they decided to siege the entire surrounding of Gaza, from air, sea, and the roads. So they control every single calorie that comes inside of Gaza, and they control every single element of over 2 million people who live right now in Gaza for more than 15 years. the year 2020 is coming. It's like basically a month and a few days. In 2012, the UN has issued a report saying that in 2020, Gaza will be not livable. Here's the thing. In 2012, Gaza was not livable because of the atrocities of the Israeli occupation. Right now, Gaza is a disaster zone. Thanks, Olivia, for mentioning that, like, how many casualties and how many terrors Gaza was witnessed the last few days. But also, there is something really crazy here. That Israel have the right to come and suspend the life of 2 million people anytime they want. Whether it was in 2005, 2008, 2014, 2012, 2019. In 2019, when they basically mass slaughtered people who were protesting during the inauguration of the American consulate in Jerusalem, where people were slaughtered. Over 60 people have been killed and over thousands of people have been injured. And always we say when the things happen, it's a crisis. But actually the crisis starts when the actual attention stops being focused on Gaza. Because you hear about the killing, you hear about the injuries, you hear about the home demolition, but you're not dealing with the aftermath. You're not dealing with the sorrow that people are facing. You're not dealing with the consequences that they're facing in their day-to-day life. Guess what? The electricity is still a big problem in Gaza. The water, the drinkable water is still a big issue in Gaza. The fishing, the agriculture, the sewage, every single aspect of life of the Gazan people have been violated over and over and over, and we need to stop it. Another thing, what's going on in Gaza is not separatable from what's going on in the West Bank. It's not separatable of what's going on in Jerusalem. It's not separatable from the atrocities that the Palestinians who are living in Israel are being subject to inside Israel, in the 48 lands. And it's not separatable from the oppression that every Palestinian around the globe is being prevented from visiting their homeland from all over the world. And that all ties us back to the right of return. And that's why it's important. Why we're here and why we're talking. We cannot rely on the US administration anymore. We cannot rely on what's called the international community. If we want to do some change, we got to take matters into our own hands. If you are as a person can do anything, you are inclined to do it, because if you're living on this land, you're paying taxes that funds this occupation. That can be from talking to your representatives,
Palestine will never die.
Our next speaker is an Army veteran, an immigrant, and a proud member of the Democratic Socialists of America. And he is running for Congress right here in Oregon to unseat Earl Blumenauer. Let's give it up for my comrade, Albert Lee.
Good afternoon. I'm here to talk about some very inconvenient truths. So number one, Israel is a non-democratic apartheid state.
That's right.
Israel is a non-democratic apartheid state. And the United States is complicit in the support of this country. I'm looking for my notes. So when I say that it is a non-democratic apartheid state, I'm saying that Palestinians, Jews of African descent, and many others are effectively second-class citizens. Some may have rights on paper, but they do not in reality. The state of Israel is in violation of international laws, customs, mores. It is in violation of general decency and humanity. Two weeks ago, I had the opportunity to watch your film, Imprisoning a Generation, which talked about the actual detention of Palestinian children as young as 12 years old, lack of due process, and state-sponsored terrorism to the Palestinian people, just for simply existing. Now, the State of Israel was created by the displacement of Palestinians and Mizrahi Jews in Palestine. Okay? Read brown people. For the Ashkenazim who left the horrors of Europe after World War II. And I understand the Ashkenazim to this day deal with intergenerational trauma from the Holocaust. But that does not excuse the abuses of the State of Israel. Since 1948, the Palestinian lands have been systemically and methodically stolen by the State of Israel, with the tacit and oftentimes overt approval of the United States. The United States is complicit in the violations of Palestinian human rights through the support and protection of the State of Israel. The State of Israel, as many of you already know, is cumulatively the largest recipient of U.S. aid, and yes, most of that is in the form of military assistance. And let's talk about U.S. foreign policy. Now, U.S. foreign policy it's always been about capitalism. It's always been about doing something for a relative few on the backs of those of the rest of us. Be it South America, Central America, Southeast Asia, Asia, or Israel. It's always been about dollars. So in the State of Israel, those dollars are actually converted into our military-industrial complex. So the money that we give to the State of Israel is tied to them spending on military training, on military equipment, from Lockheed Martin, from Boeing, from General Dynamics, so that a few may profit while others suffer. We've got to end this. Now, for all of this aid that we give to the State of Israel, what do we get in return? We get espionage. The State of Israel has the most robust espionage system against the United States. And then it in turn sells sensitive materials to China. Now, the U.S. is complicit in the State of Israel's violation of human rights, international law, because our representatives are complicit. Representatives on both sides of the aisle, supported by AIPAC, supported by J Street PAC, to support this incredibly wrong state. Now, both sides take money from these lobbyists, and then they turn their backs away from the atrocities that the Palestinian people have been suffering. Here in the 3rd District, our representative, Earl Blumenauer, has taken funds from J Street PAC in exchange for a commitment to support this apartheid state. We need to stop these crimes against humanity. We need to stop these crimes against the Palestinian people. We need to hold our government accountable, which means holding our representatives accountable. We need to have our representatives support H.R. 2407. Our funds should not go to assist in the separation and the detention of Palestinian children. We need to replace these folks with folks who are dedicated to peace, with folks who are dedicated to ending the suffering, and with folks who are dedicated to ending this occupation. Free Palestine.
Together with Jewish Voice for Peace at Portland State University. Let's give it up for Alana.
Okay, first I want to read off a list of things you can boycott in Portland, Oregon. If you're wondering what can I do right now, let me tell you. So there are companies that provide money to Israel every single day that exist in Portland. Did you guys know that there is a classroom at Portland State University named after Leupold and Stevens in the new business building? That's one thing. Sabra hummus, Israeli wine, El Beach, Every Side Raptor cycling glasses. So if you guys are cyclers, or if you support Autobahn also has ties with Leupold and Stevens. I don't know if you guys knew that. SodaStream. There are also free trips to Israel you can take if you're a student at Portland State University, which goes completely against the 2016 BDS resolution that was passed, that people worked tirelessly to fight for. Basically, I don't know if any of you are Jewish in the crowd, but white Jews need to stand up for Palestinian human rights because it is not the responsibility of Palestinians to continuously humanize themselves and say, I deserve respect, I deserve human rights, please listen to us. It is our job who have the privilege to go on free trips, to get money from J Street, to get money from Hillel, to hold Shabbat dinners, to talk about things that are not complicated or complex. You don't have to be a historian to care about Palestinian human rights. You need to be a person with a human heart, and it doesn't take a scientist or a historian to know that there's an occupier and a people being occupied, and there's a colonizer and there's a people being colonized. And Jews know very well that white supremacy has never served us. So out of anyone, we should know that history of colonization and white supremacy does not end well. And creating a white ethno-state for one religion to have more rights than the other will not serve anyone good in the long run besides you in the moment. So Jews do not serve well from an ethno-state. And for liberal Zionists who think that, well, it's just Bibi that's the problem. It's not. It's the history of Israel that's the problem. Because Theodor Herzl, who was one of the founders of Zionism, literally wrote that he wanted Ashkenazi Jews to be in power. And when people were promised homes, Mizrahi Jews, Sephardic Jews, they were given homes in poverty because they were told, oh, Israel will be so safe for you. Israel will be a land for you. And guess what? It wasn't, because it was created to serve white Jews only. So that's the history. If anyone thinks that liberal Zionism is still valid in the year 2019, it's not. So, and Bibi loves Trump. So if you have a cognitive dissonance on like where your politics should lie, I don't really know what else I was going to say here. You should boycott these things. You should write letters to your Congress. I know JVP Portland is already doing that, having weekly phone banks, calling their Congress people. If you're white, you should call out your family's racism during the Thanksgiving dinner. Literally takes nothing to do that. If your family are liberal Zionists, start having those conversations with them now, because it's 2019 and you should be calling out their bullshit, and you have the moral responsibility to do that. That's all I have to say for now.
Thank you.
If you want to learn more, if you want to come to me and ask me how to have those conversations, I can give you answers. We can sit down, we can get coffee. I lead the chapter of Jewish Voice for Peace at PSU. If you're a student, if you want to get involved, if you want to come to a radical Shabbat, let me know. You can add me on Facebook. Otherwise, free Palestine.
Jordan, and is a dedicated anti-imperialist comrade who recently joined us here in Portland. Let's give it up for Safe.
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Gaza!
Free Gaza!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
Friends and comrades, brothers and sisters, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is not just a slogan that we keep repeating. From Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, since the establishment of the terrorist state of Israel in 1948, the killing of the Palestinians, the genocide, the ethnic cleansing, the racism, the apartheid did not stop. Over the period of 48 hours, last week on the last digression on Gaza, 48 hours, Israeli occupation army murdered in cold blood, slaughtered 34 Palestinians. 1/3 of those were children, some of them as young as 8 years old. And they killed 8 people from the same family. They injured another 110 Palestinians. And that's all happened within 48 hours period. So we can only imagine the misery, the struggle,
the life that the Palestinians have been living under that occupation for 71 years. Prison comrades, we're gathering here today in solidarity with the Palestinians. Because after that aggression ended, after these 48 hours.
So, I also want to talk about what is relevant to Oregon and what we can do here. Because Oregon, and the state of Oregon, is also complicit in the crimes of Israel. The state of Oregon has a state investment fund that funds most of our public employee pensions. The state investment fund is deeply, deeply invested in the military-industrial complex to the tunes of millions of dollars. Our tax money is going to buy bombs that are dropped on children.
Shame.
Now there's not any state legislators talking about this. It's silence. The incumbent that we're running against, his name's Rob Noce. Silence. Never spoken about this. Tobias Reed, the treasurer, the state treasurer. Silence. Is Tobias Reed here today? Tobias Reed, you out here? No, Tobias Reed couldn't make it, y'all. Sorry. So Tobias Reed, you can do the job that we elected you to do. You can serve the values that Oregonians hold. And you can divest our public employee pensions from the war machine, from the apartheid state of Israel. So do the job that you were elected to do, and don't wait on me to get elected to come do it for you, because I will write that bill. I also want to go ahead and get out front of this anti-Semitism nonsense that gets thrown around.